What's up, friends, subscribers, brand new viewers? Welcome to the channel. I'm Jared. This is the LVME. We're doing a smoking reaction to a little bit something different. Something a little bit different is what I'm trying to say. This guy has been in the news a lot here lately, and it's a person that's been on my radar for a while. I've heard a couple of videos. I'm talking about Jordan Peterson here. All right. He's been in the news a bit the past few days because of some movie, from what I understand, that's coming out that is based, with my air quotes here, on him, called, I think it's called Incel. So since they're saying this shit about Peterson, I figured I need to dive more into this dude, right? I need to hear what some of this uproar is about, because maybe they got a point. Maybe this dude's a moron. I don't really know. I know he's been on Rogan a lot. I know Rogan liked some clean your room video that he did. I don't really know, man. I've heard a couple snippets, but really I don't even remember what they were. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to start with this one here, which is like 4 years old. All right, I don't even know if any of y'all are going to watch this with me, but I hope you do. This thing is like 4 years old, and it's supposed to be is Jordan Peterson calmly dismantling feminism in front of two feminists. Now, I chose this because feminism, what it originally stood for, is something that is of somewhat importance to me, because I have spent the last decade and a half more being a single father, raising a daughter completely by myself, and being that she doesn't have a strong, female influence in her life, I try to provide such things with examples, in media and pop culture and sports. And so the concept of like women getting equal pay for equal work is something I relate to, even though I understand that there's controversy around that statement that they don't. And the fact that, women should be treated equally towards men in most circumstances, be it, in the workplace and other things, and that women can do things like fight in the UFC, which was a big deal for me, being a huge UFC fan. Like I support all of these things, but I'm not some little simpy motherfucker that's trying to say I'm a feminist. I'm not. If anything, I'm like Stevie Knight says, I'm a masculinist. I believe the masculinity of men is nothing to be ashamed of. But I want to hear what Jordan Peterson has to say here. So I figured this is a fucking good place to start, and I want to hear what you all have to say about this too. So please hit me up in the comments. I'm going to stop and give you my opinion on this video, and we're going to go from here. I'm also going to spark this bad boy up, because I live in a legal state, and I'm sure I'll need this. Need it, but you know what I'm saying. If this is your bag, fire it up with me. If it's not, don't. Got this fan on above me. All right, here we go, everybody. Jordan Peterson dismantling feminists.
One of our guests of the day, the other one today, is a man you may recognise, or maybe you don't. Jordan Peterson has achieved that rare feat, becoming a global superstar academic. So how did he become so well known? He first came to national prominence in Canada in 2016 in a debate about new laws on gender identity. Bill C-16 made it an offence to refuse to call someone by their chosen gender pronoun. Jordan Peterson argued that this would infringe free speech, while some supporters of the bill said he was advocating prejudice. From there, his YouTube star took off, and he has now over 1 million subscribers. And his videos, where he talks everything from identity politics, which we've touched on, to the Bible, to Disney movies, have been viewed over 150 million times.
Okay.
Gosh, that's about the same number of views.
All right, this is all news to me. I've never checked out Jordan Peterson's channel. I don't really know much about him. I did hear the thing that he was doing with the Canadian government or Canadian courts or something when it came to the pronouns and other stuff. And I have seen a couple of clips of him talking about how he shouldn't be forced, and I agreed, into calling somebody something else. Like, I don't care. You can think what you want to think you are. You can, in most cases, I will refer to you someone as if they wish to be some odd pronoun or different pronoun or whatever than the traditional ones. I'm happy to use it, but I have a problem when the government starts stepping in and saying this is a crime if you don't. Like, that's no. So let's see where we're going here.
Viewers we have on this program. Last year, he supported ex-Google employee James Damore, who had been fired for suggesting men and women have different interests due to biological differences. And his latest book, 12 Rules for Life has taken him on a global tour promoting his ideas. And just this week, he sold out the 1,000-seater Emmanuel Centre around the corner here in Westminster.
All right.
So, Jordan, you've done endless interviews. You've been publicising your book, and they've generated plenty of heated debate.
No, I actually sold out the Apollo. It had 5,000 seats.
All right, stop both.
Oh, he's putting them in a little place a little bit. He's like, actually, I sold out the Apollo with 5,000 seats. 5x on the 1,000 she was talking about. A little flex.
Do you think, though, because of the heat that has been generated, that your views have been misrepresented at times?
Oh, definitely, but that's, you know, that's part and parcel of the process. I did take a very forceful stance, let's say, against some of the excesses of the radical left-wingers, and it's in their best interest to paint me as somehow a figure of the extreme right, because then I don't have to be contended with. But, I mean, it's easy for people's views to be oversimplified.
Dude, that's the tactic now for everything. If somebody says something that the progressive extreme, in my mind, left disagrees with, they just label you whatever. Oh, you're a shitty person because of most likely racism. It's a tired trope. I mean, and it waters down real racism as well.
In a very large public debate.
I mean, in terms of some of the issues, when you say you've been painted as an extreme right-winger.
No, some people have tried that. Not very successfully, but they've tried it.
And you came to prominence in part.
So I think he's clearly saying right there that he is not. If they've been unsuccessful in painting him as an extreme right-winger, then clearly he would not view himself as that. I don't know what his politics are, but that's, by today's standards, I'm an extreme right-winger, which is fucking crazy because I wouldn't even consider myself conservative. I mean, me and my friends have this conversation. Like in our mind, like our parents are conservative Republicans, right? Or maybe not even Republicans, but like some of my friends, yes, some no. But like to me, when I think of a conservative Republican, the image that comes to mind is like some Leave It to Beaver's dad, right? Like that dude. Like, and that ain't me. I would not ever label myself that. And yet now I know that if I publicized what I consider to be pretty fucking common sense, middle of the road viewpoints, I'd immediately get labeled as such. It's crazy.
Over your opposition to this law that we just talked about in Canada, proposing the use of preferred pronouns for transgender people. Just for clarity.
Mandating them.
Yeah.
Right.
Saying that you should do it.
No, that you had to do it.
Right, you had to do it.
Yeah, that's the problem, is they're mandating it. There's a humongous difference between something you should do as like a decent human being and the government mandating that you're forced to do something. Those are two different fucking worlds.
By law, but just for clarity, do you think a trans woman is a real woman?
I don't really like the way those questions are formulated. You know, I don't know what that means. What do you mean a real woman?
Well, I'm asking you, in your mind, you know, it depends what you think a real woman is, but do you think a trans...
No, that's very interesting. She said it depends on what you think a real woman is. I think in the light of this documentary that I just watched like 4 or 5 days ago that just fucking blew my shit, called What is a Woman? Oh my God. Yeah, she's saying that now. That statement doesn't even hold water now, because what is that? He's right. What is that? She couldn't possibly define that anymore. I'm guessing, since apparently so few people can. It's gonna be my new litmus test in life. Like, if you can't answer that question, I don't know if you can be in the circle. I don't even know if you can be in the acquaintances. I don't even know.
Trans woman is a woman.
No.
Why not?
Because I think that women are capable, generally speaking, of having babies, and they have female genitalia, and they have an XX chromosome, and I think the biological markers are relevant. It doesn't necessarily mean that I don't think that people should be treated with respect and dignity if they happen not to fit easily into a gender category.
There you go. What is wrong with what he just said? I think it's pretty clear these days that if you're one of these people that happens to be watching this video trying to think in your head that there's no biological differences between men and women, then explain the differentiation in professional sports. And then if you think that they should be co-ed, explain to me why it is that after they've been intermingled that there's no women making the fucking football team. Not with the same requirements. Why do they have to change the requirements in the army, in the military, in fire departments, in police departments? I'm not saying that it's wrong that they can't do these jobs. I'm just saying it's undeniable that standards were lowered because of the physicality difference. So there's a physicality difference because there's gender differences, because biologically they're different, and there's nothing wrong with that. I would think that true feminists would be getting pissed off at this anybody can be a woman bullshit. Like, fuck you. No, you can't. I don't get it. But let's continue on with what my man is saying here. But I sincerely don't hear anything wrong with what he just said. That seemed to be a perfectly logical, educated statement.
With respect and dignity if they happen not to fit
Yes, treating people with respect and dignity if they happen to not fit in between the two traditionally recognized gender norms. Yes, what's wrong with that?
easily into a gender category. That's a different issue.
Right.
But it's a matter of definition. And I actually think it's a foolish argument in some sense. Because what do you mean by real?
Well, I mean, you've just clarified that, though. You don't think that a trans woman is a woman. And do you think that...
See, she's doing everything she can to fuck him over right here. She's like, you've just clarified what... He's like, you can't define what a real woman is. And she says, oh, no, you've just clarified that. Well, by stating give birth and other things. And then she just goes into, like, somehow making it derogatory. They're not a woman.
That is what is behind or explains your opposition to this idea of a law mandating you to use a preferred pronoun is because you don't actually believe that that's the truth, that a trans woman is a woman and therefore you can't use that pronoun.
No, that's not my argument at
Really?
all.
Wow.
Yeah, really. My argument is that
she just said, so you can't use that pronoun because you don't believe that a trans woman is a woman, so you can't use that pronoun. That's your argument. And he's like, no, that's not it at all. And she goes, really? And he's like, yeah, really. Let me explain to you once again what my argument is. Is this the kind of opposition this dude faces in a normal interview? It seems very confrontational instead of conversational.
I know what your
shouldn't
argument
compel
is.
voluntary speech.
No, but I know what your argument is.
Oh, he just said what?
My argument is that the
I know
government
what your
shouldn't
argument
compel
is.
voluntary speech.
He said, my argument is the government shouldn't compel voluntary speech. That sums it up. Why is that a controversial fucking thing? Are you kidding me?
No, but I know what your argument is, and
No,
you've
but
made
that's
it very
really
clearly.
it. No, but that's exactly it. There's
But the
no behind.
motivation
There's
behind
no motivation behind it.
But you don't believe
I
a
wouldn't
trans
put
woman is a woman.
everything on my online in my life to take the stance I did unless I had thought that through very deeply. And I've thought it through very deeply. There aren't hidden motivations that have to do with some arbitrary prejudice against trans people.
Okay.
It's pure and simply this. There's never been a time in English common law history where the government compelled speech and
There's never been a time in English common law history where the government compelled speech. That is a very important statement and a very important thing, and it's people like him that stand up and are doing very important work. And the fact that people want to twist this into some sort of bigotry, it disturbs me because I am a big believer in the tenets of free speech and the government not dictating what you can and cannot say. And we see more and more of that eroded every day across the world. Specifically here in America and apparently in Canada, it's been getting jacked up with this kind of stuff. I mean, they talked about in that What is a Woman documentary about some man that has apparently been arrested for calling his son his daughter or his daughter his son. I don't remember the details. There was so much bizarreness in that documentary. I can't remember all the details, but I love how she's trying to tell him what his viewpoint is, and he is pointing out this very important thing that you would think a journalist would seize upon, is that at no time in English common law history has the government compelled free speech. A journalist, someone who deals in the arena literally of free speech, should be fucking outraged at that, but instead they're just trying to spin it for their political gain.
the Canadian government dared to do that. and that was unacceptable. And they masked it with this show of compassion for the oppressed, and I don't buy it.
Right, but you would, as I think you said, at an individual level, if somebody asked you, if somebody asked you to use a particular pronoun, you would do.
Okay, so she ignores everything he just said about the government compelling free speech and focuses in on, but you have said in your personal life you would use a pronoun. Like, he explained his position, nothing to do with treating a person with dignity, and nothing to do with bigotry, everything to do with the government compelling what you can and cannot say in a country with free speech. And she, as a journalist, it goes whoosh, and she's focused right in on agenda. At least in my opinion, that's what's fucking happening here.
Do so.
Well, I have.
You have? Right,
Yes.
fine.
Yes.
Let's talk about feminism. Are you a feminist?
Okay, so finally we're going to get to the feminism here. And she starts it off with the, are you a feminist? What kind of statement? What does that even mean in 2022? I know this was 2018. I don't know what it meant then. Like, I know what it meant in 1970. Not that I wasn't even alive in 1970. I'm just saying I know what that version of it means. I know what it meant when I was growing up. I don't know what this shit means now when they're saying that, like, I can't even tell you what a woman is. So what the fuck is femininity then?
No, not as it's currently defined, certainly not.
No. Well,
He said, no, I'm not a feminist as it's currently defined. Certainly not. Yeah.
in any other definition?
Well, I think that anybody who doesn't think that the competitive landscape should be opened up for equality of opportunity is not thinking. And so
Anybody who thinks, wait, hold on. What he said there is very important. He's a very eloquent man.
well, I think that anybody who doesn't think that the competitive landscape should be opened up for equality of
Anyone who doesn't think that the competitive landscape should be opened up for equality of opportunity, I'm assuming what he's going to say, is obviously a moron, a bigoted idiot.
opportunity is not thinking.
Okay,
And
there you
so
go.
everyone's interests are better served if people have as equal access to opportunity to display.
Everyone's interests are better served when everyone has equal access to opportunity, regardless of your pronouns or your skin colors or your gender. That's what he's saying here. Ooh, God, this guy's controversial as fuck. They should make a movie about how he just can't get laid or something.
Their talents and to manifest their talents in the world as possible. So in that sense, certainly. But feminism now, and this is why it's so deeply unpopular, a very small minority of women in the UK identify as feminists. And the reason for that is it's primarily become an ideological weapon. And it's an ideology that I don't.
He said feminism in the UK, they're speaking of, in 2018 has become an ideological weapon, something that he does not recognize any longer.
I detest, actually, the ideology that it's associated with, collectivist ideology.
Right. I mean, okay, and that's your view about feminism. Aisha, are you a feminist?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a very proud feminist, and when I was a special advisor in government.
Now, I don't know what her age is. I'm just, no offense to you, madam. I'm a guess 30-ish. Again, I would say if you have to acknowledge the fact that the definition and the goals and motivations behind what has traditionally been called feminism have really changed. I mean, I don't have to dive deep into the topics to understand that. It's pretty glaring when you just look at the surface level. Am I right? What do you think?
I worked on women and equality issues, and I was very proud, actually, of a piece of legislation I got on the statute book with my former boss, Harriet Harman, the Equality Act in 2010, which strengthened our anti-discrimination.
Okay, I mean, she's talking about things back in 2010. 2010, and I'm not sure about 2018, but this stuff was going then. That was just 4 years ago. I mean, this gender thing and all of this was certainly unfolding. It wasn't to the point it is right now, but it wasn't in 2010. I mean, that's a whole different world.
Laws, and I fought very hard to get more women into public life, into the
That's all
Labour
good.
Party, and
All that
I'm
is
very,
good.
very proud of being a feminist, hence my pink dress.
Oh, well.
That's not what he's talking about, though.
Well, all right. Obviously reverting to type then in the
Absolutely,
pink dress.
well.
You would like men to regain or reclaim their strength physically, mentally and morally. Is that broadly correct?
I would say morally, fundamentally, but I think the other things go along with that.
Right, and if that
But it isn't men precisely who I'm speaking to. It's people. I'm a clinical psychologist.
See, she's trying to say that he is almost like he wants men. He said you want men to become, you know, morally whatever. And he's saying, well, yes, but no. I want just people in general to improve and become better, because he's a clinical psychologist. He's not a men's specialist, I'm gathering.
Precisely who I'm speaking to. It's people. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm actually interested in individuals, and
He said, I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm actually interested in individuals, not the big groups.
interested in their fortification against tragedy. You know, every time I do an interview, the interview is always political. It's always political.
Well, the clue is in the title of this programme. We are the Daily Politics.
No, fair enough. No, look, fair enough. And I'm not casting aspersions at this programme, but the fundamental news that's important about what I'm doing isn't the political element. And the people who talk to me don't talk politically. They say they've watched my lectures.
But part of it is that I think for a lot of people, the kind of
Okay, well, she totally interrupted him. I'm just saying he's being polite and letting her go, but he was not done speaking. I'm just saying.
does become the political.
Or the political becomes the personal.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the...
Yeah, but in this situation, a lot of people are wrong, because primarily what's happening is people are watching...
Now he's trying to finish his thought before she speaks about... I'm just saying. Sorry, I should let this play.
The political.
Or the political becomes the personal.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the...
Yeah, but in this situation, a lot of people are wrong, because primarily what's happening is people are watching my lectures, and as a consequence, their lives are improving dramatically.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm sure people are have had a huge conversion after, and they're much happier once they've been.
It's not a conversion.
But what I would like to do is kind of...
She's just brushing off what he does. She's like, yeah, I'm sure people have had a big conversion. And he's like, it's not even a conversion. You're not even understanding or attempt. She's not, apparently, in my opinion, she doesn't appear to be even attempting to understand what he's talking about. Just like the host, the things that he was saying, she just ignored. I mean, she slipped that shit like a fucking boxer and stayed focused in on his use of pronouns.
I think at the moment the discussion about feminism is very divisive, and sometimes it can sort of be like, okay, men have to lose and women have to gain. Actually, everybody has a lot to gain by greater equality. Now, whether you get the equality of outcome that you want, I think only time will tell. But certainly, equality of opportunity is very important. And actually,
we can agree on that.
Well, of course, you can't agree on equality of outcome. That's absurd. Now, if you're listening to this and you're not quite understanding what that means, equality of outcome versus equality of opportunity. All right, a job opens up for a lawyer. I can apply for that job. I was a white dude. A black dude can go apply for that job. A woman can go apply for that job. A transgendered man can go apply for that job. We all have an equal opportunity, and we should be judged with the same equal eye. Our skin and our sex shouldn't matter when we're going to apply for the job. All right, but equality of outcome, like let's say the trans guy has a law degree, I don't, or vice versa. I have a law degree, they don't, or the black guy does, or they don't. Like I'm not going to have the same outcome as somebody who's got a fucking law degree, and nor should I. Now that's an extreme example, but that's what that means. Like you're not always going to get the fucking job, but you can shoot for it.
And a lot of men would benefit from that. So I think a lot of men are having a lot of crises at the moment.
Wait, men benefit from what?
Time will tell, but certainly equality of opportunity is very important. And actually,
we can agree on that.
And a lot of men would benefit from that. So I think a lot of men...
A lot of men are going to benefit from equality of opportunity. I don't understand what that means. I can't speak for what the shit's like in the UK, but we've come a long way here.
Men are having a lot of crises at the moment in terms of mental health, suicide issues, their own sense of identity, because I think some of the stereotypes put on men are quite limiting for them as well. I think they make men quite unhappy as well.
The devil's in...
She thinks that men are unhappy because of the stereotypes that are put on men make them unhappy because they're incorrect stereotypes. I don't know. I just think it's a bold move to try to figure out what men are thinking. Like, I am not going to try to diagnose a problem with a woman based on societal pressures and stereotypes as to what it's like to be a woman, as to whether or not that's affecting someone's day-to-day life, because I have no fucking idea what it's like to be a woman, and this woman here respectfully has no fucking idea what it's like to be a man. You have no clue. So you have no idea what you're talking about if the stereotypes are hurting men. You should probably ask.
In the details with regards to equality, because I'm an advocate of equality of opportunity, but
and
I think
outcomes.
the idea outcomes, that's
He just said again, I'm an advocate of equality of opportunity, and then the host chimes in, and outcomes. No, you can't have equality of outcomes. Of course not.
equality, because I'm an advocate of equality of opportunity, but
and
I think
outcomes.
the idea outcomes, that's an appalling doctrine.
Why?
Why?
Of course. Why? They're both they're both advocates of equality of outcome. So everybody should have the same outcome as they have opportunity. That's insane. This cannot be a position that you've thought through and honestly believe. That makes
But
and
I think
outcomes.
the idea outcomes, that's an appalling doctrine.
Why?
Why?
All right. Well, hang on.
Because you have to produce an unbelievably potent bureaucracy to make the ever greater and ever finer distinctions that are necessary to enforce equality of outcome. How many group differences are you going to equalize across? Is it just gender and sex? How many genders?
No, so
gender and ethnicity? How many genders?
I think
how many
what
ethnicities?
people are-
How many races?
We'll let Aisha answer.
I think what people are trying
and these cocky women are laughing at like, this is why we can't have an intelligent back and forth conversation, because these two people, they're not here to have a conversation, they're here to one up, right? So he says something and they laugh like it's dumb as fuck. Like, if this was turned around and if it was a woman expressing views about feminism and two men that were scoffing every time she opened up her mouth and laughing at her, it would stand out a lot more as being fucked up, don't you think? I'm just saying, and it has nothing to do with their sex or their gender. It's just rude on a human level. Like what you're doing is not conductive to a fucking conversation.
to do with this, and certainly as somebody who has looked to sought to sort of do this.
Wait, let me just bounce this back to your laughing.
Differences are you going to equalize across? Is it just gender and sex? How many genders?
No, so
gender and ethnicity? How many genders?
I think
how many
what
ethnicities?
people are-
How many races?
We'll let Aisha answer.
I think what people are trying to do with this, and certainly as somebody who has looked to sought to sort of do this myself, I think you set yourself ambitions for what you would like to see, and then you try and remove as many of the structural barriers and obstacles. So you try and create that fair crack of the whip and that equality of opportunity to see where you get to with the outcomes.
That's
now,
fine.
we are in very early.
No, that's what he's just saying. That's fine. It's this divergence into this equality of outcome. I mean, you can just listen to the statement and it makes no sense. You can say everybody should have access to the same equal opportunities. That's a statement that makes logical sense, right? The statement, when everybody does something, everybody should have the exact same outcome. So when everybody in the school takes a test, they should all have the same outcome. When everybody applies for a job, they should all have the same outcome. That doesn't hold up in anything that you do. When you go to a sporting event, if you throw the ball, there should be the same outcome. Every team should have the same outcome. Everybody should be a winner. That's not a logical statement. And it belittles achievement, actually. You feel good as a human being, in my opinion. I certainly have no psychology degrees, but I believe that humans are designed to achieve goals. It doesn't really matter what the goals are. It doesn't have to be goals of grandeur. It can be anything, literally, but you have to set goals and accomplish them, and then set other goals and accomplish them, so you're constantly achieving. And then when you fail, you You analyze why you failed and you progress forward towards your goal. And it's never like this. You don't go like starting point, goal, and you don't go straight line. It goes like this. And all this shit in the middle is called life. You can't equalize the outcome because it belittles the achievement.
Stage. It's only 100 years since, women got the vote in this country. We have had a long-established patriarchal society and set up for a long time in the world, in this country. So I think we have a long way to go to see where it plays out. There is no country in the world where, we really do have gender equality properly yet, in terms of real decision-making and real
Some of the
power.
Scandinavian countries, maybe?
They're still not quite there, and I think you've spoken a lot about this. There's still a way to go in Scandinavia. Things are not perfect in Scandinavia.
I haven't spoken about that specifically. I've spoken about
you spoke about the right stuff yesterday. You talked about the
Well,
Scandinavia.
I've spoken about the fact that, see, one of the things that's happened in the analysis of the differences between men and women is that the social constructionist claim is that the differences are socially constructed, right? Is that it's a consequence.
Okay, you're saying a socially constructionist claim that the differences between men and women are constructed socially. I know that sounds like a circular statement, but that they're not real. It's because, little girls are taught at a small age, you wear pink and you play with dolls, and little boys are taught at a small age, you wear blue and you play with fucking toy trucks. Now, that's a really lame example, but it follows the point.
That the social constructionist claim is that the differences are socially constructed, right? Is that it's a consequence of environment that men and women differ.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if we weren't sitting there telling the boys, hey, you play with this, that they wouldn't play with that. And if we were telling the girls this is what you do, they wouldn't grow up thinking that way. That we've made it that way, and really they're the fucking same. Which, yeah.
What the scientific literature indicates is that as cultures become more egalitarian, like they have in Scandinavia, the differences between men and women actually increase rather than decreasing, which is a direct repost to the social constructionist view. So they just deny all that.
So what he basically just said right there is that the latest scientific studies are showing the opposite of what the social constructionist view is, that the difference between men and women are simply a social construct, and he's saying that examples in science are showing the exact opposite.
Biggest differences in the world in interest and temperament are between Scandinavian men and women. It's exactly the opposite of what everyone predicted.
Can I just pick up on one thing you said a little earlier in the interview, which you said it's the...
Okay, so he's listing apparently, I don't know about this, but it sounds like a scientific study of some sort's going on shit that's going down in Scandinavia that indicates that the social construction argument is invalid. That as it is removed, it becomes even more, the differences become even more obvious, or ingrained in society, or ingrained in the individual people. And she completely ignores what he's saying and is diving into something else, like she's done consistently throughout this.
Moral.
Like, he's explained why you can't have the differences of the equality of outcome by going into the basics between men and women here. And it's just ignored. Like, why can't they talk about this type of thing? I suppose this is why he goes on shows like Rogan, which I haven't even seen that one on the JRE when he's on there. I should probably peep it out.
Opposite of what everyone predicted.
Can I just pick up on one thing you said a little earlier in the interview, which you said it's the moral guidance that you are focused on. You think that is particularly important. How do you square that with the behaviour of perhaps arguably, a prominent alpha male president of the United States, Donald?
How do you square bringing morality back to manhood against Donald Trump? She's ignoring everything that he said and then trying to make it circle back around that he's some sort of Trump supporter, which in 2018, I'm sure in their view is right on par with him, hanging out with the devil and drinking martinis.
Perhaps arguably, prominent alpha male president of the United States, Donald Trump. When his behaviour, he is accused of having an affair with a porn star when his wife was pregnant. How does that fit with morally reclaiming...
how does Donald Trump being accused of having an affair, possibly with Stormy, whatever the fuck her name was, while his wife was pregnant, how does that line up with your view of morality in men? That's a ridiculous question that has nothing to do with this conversation. And especially when you consider the fact that this is apparently taking place in the United Kingdom, on the BBC, you can see in the top left of the corner. So they're not even talking about their own prime minister. He's Canadian, and they're in the UK, and they're bringing up how do you reconcile Donald Trump with everything you're saying? Wow, just wow. Look at old boy's face right there. That's got to be at the point where he is like, you're bringing the Don into this bullshit. Like this guy, you're using this guy as the example.
Wife was pregnant.
Look at his
How
face.
does that fit with morally reclaiming?
My boy's had enough. My boy has had enough.
I would say that was rather clearly immoral.
Right.
Yeah.
But
The first thing he says is, yeah, that was rather clearly immoral. Right.
Not to be a target for emulation.
But you still would have voted for him.
Oh my God. He is saying that I was clearly immoral and not a target of emulation. And she is speaking over him and saying, but you would have still voted for him. He's fucking Canadian. That's the nonsense level of this conversation. Like, I'm outraged because this is why we can't have intelligent conversations in this arena anymore. Because this is it circles back to what I said earlier. It becomes a competition of trying to one up. Like, she's just trying to one up Jordan Peterson, and now she's pulling her Trump card, pun intended, which is Donald Trump. Like bringing him into the mix, which had nothing to do with anything anybody has talked about in this entire segment.
Not to be a target for emulation.
But you still would have voted for him over Hillary Clinton as an identity politics. It's just how do you...
He said you still would have voted for him over Hillary Clinton based on identity politics. And he is just laughing at her. I think he's saying, how would you know how I would have voted? But I'm just... Let's see.
Clinton as an identity politics. It's just how
none
do
of that
you...
was on the table. And I said I might have voted for him on a whim.
He said he might have voted for him on the whim, but none of that was ever on the table. It sounds like I don't know. It sounds like an offhand comment he might have made. It doesn't even matter. It's this ridiculous hypothetical that is inconsequential and meaningless, and is simply done in an effort to one up, to make him look bad and her look good. Oh, look, he's a Trump supporter. Can't listen to him. Ha! I mean, you can see that happening all over the place today in 2022.
But you also did say you started out feeling quite close to Hillary Clinton. Can I just come on the...
Very quickly, because we've got to move on.
In a way, I don't care what Trump does in terms of his private life, but what I don't have is him stopping or potentially stopping other women having agency over their reproductive rights and lots of men taking those decisions,
It's all about where
Oh my God, now she's like, men taking reproductive rights away from women. What does that have to do with this conversation? So instead of replying to anything that he has said when he speaks about his beliefs and then he explains them, they accuse him of believing one way. He says, no, I believe this way and here's why. And they ignore it and come back with something to make him look bad. That seems to be just the pattern. And it's gone now like, oh, well, you're a Trump supporter and, oh, abortion. Men are always trying to do that. You support that? You try to support men trying to take away our rights to our bodies? I mean, that's the impression I'm getting here. This is fucking ridiculous. This is why we can't have nice things.
Moral outrage lies, and what's more morally outrageous?
Decisions.
It's all about where the moral outrage lies, and what's more morally outrageous in people's eyes. Is it his behaviour or the identity politics for you on the... Anyway, we'll have to...
She is saying what's more morally outrageous in people's eyes, is it his behavior for all of us, or is it the identity politics for you? That's not what he said. That was not what he said. And now it seems like she's cutting away for a different segment or a commercial or something before he can respond to that. Wow, that's got to be.
In people's eyes, is it his behaviour or the identity politics for you on the... Anyway, we'll have to discuss this another time.
Okay. All right, that's the end of that. Wow. Okay. This is not quite what I was hoping for. Mainly just, you know, the problem is I hope for conversation and not gotcha journalism. I'm so sick of the gotcha journalism. It's bullshit. We can't have conversations in public arenas anymore without somebody implying or using these tactics, and it gets fucking tiresome. Because intelligent debate is one of the few things that, you know, we can use to help enlighten people and encourage people's education about things. So anyways, I'd love to know your thoughts on this video. I've made mine pretty clear throughout it. I want to hear about yours. Hit me up in the comments. I'll get back to as many as I can. Please hit the like and subscribe if you like this video. See you on the next one, everybody. Peace.